So how long does dopamine fasting take, and how often should you do a dopamine fast? Well, let's take a look at this. First, let me start by saying that dopamine fasting is a wonderful tool that I think almost everyone who lives in today's super stimulating world should have in their toolbox. And dopamine fasting is something you should come back to pretty much your entire life and then do in different periods throughout your life. Because, well, I think every one of you understands that the effects of dopamine fasting won't last forever if you go back to using a bit too much dopamine stimulation after your fast. And you know what? That's 100% okay. Because even though we want to have a healthy lifestyle in general, if we are being honest here, almost every one of us is going to step over the line from time to time when it comes to indulging in some low-value dopamine activities. And then dopamine fasting is a tool you can use to reverse the negative effects of that. So when it comes to how long and how intensely you should do a dopamine fast, here we really need to understand that every one of us have different issues, different brains, and most importantly, different lives. Some see great benefits even after just one day, while others may need to do 2 or then a period of several so-called light dopamine fasting days after each other. And we all have to find ways of doing different dopamine fasting protocols that fits smoothly into our current life situation. For example, a 7-day super strict dopamine fast is most likely going to skyrocket almost everyone's dopamine system to levels they never experienced before. But setting aside so many days in a row for dopamine fasting is not going to be feasible for everyone out there if we do it super strict. On the other hand, a light version of a 7-day dopamine fast could look something like this. You eat super healthy 7 days in a row. You turn off your phone and the internet 4 hours before bed. You use 0 adult online entertainment, in other words, porn. Now, that would be a light version that almost everyone could do. That would already be doing a lot of good for your dopamine system. Then we of course have shorter dopamine fasts as well, like a 24-hour dopamine fast or a 48-hour dopamine fast. These are actually more common, and if you take these seriously and make them really strict, they too can do wonders for your dopamine system, especially the 48-hour protocol. Now, it's also important to understand that dopamine fasting comes with a lot of different benefits. And this is why many people have different goals with their dopamine fasts as well. Some do it to reduce procrastination and become more productive. Others do it to help speed up their PMO recovery. For example, Victor Martin says, quote, "I have bought your course, Bob, and I'm super happy. I truly believe that anyone who is detoxing from porn can greatly speed up their recovery with this. Perhaps instead of 90 days, it is possible in 40 days, unquote. Now, big disclaimer here. All of us are different, and I don't know anything about your days and your speed. This was just Victor's take on it. But I too am fully convinced that it is indeed possible to speed up recovery from addictions, because dopamine fasting could potentially be a way to quicker upregulate your dopamine D2 receptors and thus help reset or rebalance your whole dopamine system. And then some do dopamine fasting to increase their energy, drive, and motivation. And some do it to turn up their sensitivity to dopamine and pleasure so that they can get more joy out of, well, basically everything in life. And of course, there are many other benefits than those. But speaking of us having different goals and turning up the sensitivity to pleasures, a cool way to use dopamine fasting is, for example, if you have a vacation coming up. Maybe you are even going on a trip somewhere. Well, if you want to make sure to really get a super awesome and pleasurable vacation, you can do a dopamine fast the week before you leave to really make sure your dopamine system will increase its sensitivity to dopamine. This would make your vacation feel even more pleasurable than normal, and in a very significant way as well. By the way, this is what I like to do myself. I like to divide my year into periods where I'm working more and then a few small vacation periods as well. And I often fine-tune my dopamine system by doing a dopamine detox protocol right before those vacation periods. And oh man, let me tell you, the increase in joy and happiness is extremely noticeable. It is like vacation mode on steroids. You can also use different dopamine fasting protocols if you have something important coming up, like a week of job interviews or a month of exams in your school. Then you could do a seriously effective dopamine fast a few days before that period to really make sure all your senses and your brain are going to be super sharp during those exams. And also, maybe you did a bit too much partying during your vacation or at some other period during the year. And well, then you can do a short dopamine fast after your vacation as well, to get your brain up and running before you hit your work again. The point here is that dopamine fasting is a tool for you to use when you need it, and most of us are going to need it at some point because 99.9% of us are not going to live a day-to-day life where we are 100% dopamine healthy all of the time. And you know what? That's perfectly fine, because we have to remember to live a little as well. And this is just one reason why I personally love dopamine fasting so much, because in a sense it makes it possible to both eat the cookie and have it too. And this is something I talk all about in my Dopamine Focus Fasting online course. In that course you can choose between 5 different fasting protocols ranging all the way from 48 hours up to 84 days. The longer protocols are obviously not going to be as strict as the shorter ones because they are so long. So you can look at those more like a dopamine healthy period. So they are actually a bit easier to do than you would think. But man, oh man, how they will turn you into a productive beast who is capable of completely crushing every goal you set for yourself. Now the shorter protocols are more like sort of a hard reset and are super effective as well. But I personally love the longer protocols because I've also created a scoring system for those. So they become just like a fun game to play where you can try to beat your previous week's score. And in the course I will obviously also show you exactly how to do these protocols as well. And on top of this, you'll also discover a lot of different dopamine hacks that'll all be of great help on your journey to getting a supercharged dopamine system. I will leave a link under the video if you want to go and read more about the dopamine fasting course. And if you wonder if dopamine fasting really can help speed up PMO recovery, then take a look at this video right here, as over there I'm talking more about that exact thing.